What is better than stats for our Michigan State football team going into 2023? Well, how about some pro football focused college talk from the one, the only Hunter Stahl? Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, one day closer to kickoff. I'm already starting to pull money out of the couch cushions for my 50-50 raffle tickets. I will certainly be buying as I'm 11 beers deep at the tailgate next Friday, but that's neither here nor there right now. And it's not time for tomfoolery. It's time to get down to brass tacks because we are talking nothing but ball and numbers here today on Locked On Spartans. There's a website out there. It's called PFF, Pro Football Focus. They know a thing or two about college and pro football. Hey, one of the people that writes for them, that does work for them, he's with us today. His name's Hunter Stahl. Hunter, how on earth are you doing so far this offseason, and are you ready for kickoff, quite simply?
Hey, Matt, doing well. Thanks for having me. I've been a big fan of this podcast for about 3 or 4 years now. I started listening since about 2019 or so, back when I was still at Michigan State. So glad to be on. Definitely ready for kickoff. It's been a long summer, and so looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I mean, thanks for joining us. I mean, look, anytime that anyone knows anything about football, sure, we'll have them on. But when you email us and say that, yeah, I do work for PFF, well, we're going to roll out the red carpet for you. Yeah, that's certainly going to get you the green light every single time. For those that don't know what PFF is, all right, they have, what would you call it? Like game scores per individual, or what do you guys do that a box score doesn't, I guess, is just the first question to set the tone for this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So PFF overall does a lot of analytic work for football on both the college and NFL levels. And one of the things that they're known for are the player grades. And so what PFF does is that we evaluate every single player on every single play of every game for the entire season for, once again, both NFL and college. And as a result of that, too, most of the clients we have are the actual NFL teams, and most D1 teams are the clients that we use. And so the thing about grading is that grading focuses more on production rather than just outcome on a given play. And so it tells more of a story, gets more in-depth detail than just stats do overall you find in a box score.
When it comes to that, so are you just, DVRing every game on ESPN or Fox, or how on earth is this sausage made? Because I've always been fascinated, because look, all 22 players aren't on a frame at every given play on ESPN or Fox or Big Ten Network. So good God, Hunter, how on earth do you guys do this? It's got to be painstaking.
Yeah, it definitely is at some points. But basically we have, I guess you'd call it a small army here at PFF of over 500 employees in total that work all these games. And so, every Saturday and Sunday, or even obviously 2 games in the week when that comes about, we have guys that are doing all these games either live or a combination of live and after the fact once all 22 video comes out as well. And so we're looking at every aspect of the game, and we record over 200 data points per play in every game of the season, once again, for all the NFL and college games. So once again, it takes a lot of hands on deck, a lot of work, and a lot of coordination to do that. But definitely, it gets done, and, we're the only company that does it to that extent, to my knowledge, as far as that goes.
Same to my knowledge as well. There are some that, do really great work. Don't get me wrong, but PFF is on a different level than everyone else. Let's say in 8 days from now, Michigan State, they take on Central Michigan. How long do you guys watch that game for to grade everything properly? Like, what is that process post-game like for you guys?
Yeah, so most of the grading actually takes place live during the game. And so we have a live feed of all the games. And the thing about grading, too, is that it's not just one person doing all these grades. It's a whole process. So we should have 2 people doing the games together, and then a third person that does the review on that as well. So that way you get kind of, more I guess you could say, efficiency that way, having someone review the games. And even on top of that, too, our reviewers, aren't just computer nerds. A lot of guys are former coaches. I mean, we have former D1 coaches here. We have scouts. We have people who have worked in the NFL, college football levels, and so forth. So Definitely have guys who know what they're doing and talking about. But yeah, so overall, with grades is that, they really tell more of a story than a simple stats do when it comes to looking at a box score, like you mentioned earlier, or a stat sheet rather. And so some examples of how grades work and how they can be better than stats are, for example, on a play where a quarterback throws a great pass to the receiver that the receiver drops and is then picked off. On that play, the quarterback would still get a positive grade. The receiver would get a negative grade. And then the DB would get a positive for making the pick as well, of course. And so with that, it tells more of a story than just a simple INT on the stat sheet. Okay. Yeah. And same thing works too, for like stat padding rather as well. And so for that, it doesn't matter. Like on a bubble screen, for example, if the receiver breaks it for 50 yards, the quarterback still gets the same grade for making an easy short pass, but the receiver will get the better grade for breaking tackles, making the breakdown field, and so forth. So it helps in that regard. It also helps too because some positions like O-line, you can't really record stats for them every play. Just like pressures, sacks given up, maybe pancake blocks. But with grades, though, you can see how they did in every play for not only pass blocking, but run blocking. So really, once again, here in some, it just kind of tells you more of a story. It's not to say that stats shouldn't be used, but it really does, I think, give a more in-depth look on how players do, not only during each game, but throughout an entire season.
So I just really needed to go through all that before we serve the listeners, a full breakfast buffet. We have to know how the sausage is made, but also too, like over here, I know you guys do great work. I knew most of how you guys do it, but man, that is painstaking work you guys put in. Do not envy what you guys do every single weekend, but very thankful for what you guys do. And we'll thank you for joining this show. With all that said, with the whole, sometimes a box score doesn't meet what's really going on the field. I'm just going to go to the negative side of things right now. Just get this out of the way because we have plenty of good stuff to talk about. Mm-hmm. Was the secondary really that bad then the last few years? If the answer is just simply yes, then we could just say yes and move along. But I mean, is it that bad, or are there some redeeming qualities with the secondary here in East Lansing?
Yeah, past few years, unfortunately, it was that bad. And we've some grades that show how bad it really was in a little bit here. So yeah, secondary, not pretty. But with that being said, we do have plenty of other positive things to talk about, going into this season. And so, yeah, I mean, other than that, with the grades on each play are on a spectrum from -2 to a +2 in 0.5 increments. And so the 0 is the average grade or the neutral grade in the play. So that can be, like a receiver who doesn't get targeted on a route, or O-line versus D-line. That's just a stalemate. Normally wins. That'd be a 0 grade. A -2 is like a game-ending, pick six that a quarterback throws, or, like a last-second Hail Mary touchdown pass that the quarterback throws, be a +2 on the other side of that spectrum. And so from those grades, though, on every play and every game, they're broken down too in different parts of the game. So you have a grade not only for the overall player, but also for things like passing game versus run game, things like receiving versus rushing, pass block, run block, coverage, special teams, etc. So you can really break down the player and kind of see, what they excel at and what they're not so great at with certain parts of the game that well.
Okay. That's good to know. And look, believe me, I just wanted to get the whole secondary thing out of the way. We have 2 more segments, chock full of optimism here in a hot segment. But first, Hunter, I'm so sorry. You carried the first segment explaining what you guys do at PFF so well. We're going to send you to the bench here for a hot segment because I need to talk the people's ears off about eBay Motors. Folks, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, hey, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your vehicle to My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit just right, or your money back guaranteed right back in your pocket. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, my goodness gracious, that's a lot of parts. You will be back in the game in no time. After all, It's easy to bring home the win when the right parts are guaranteed. So what are you waiting for over there? Get the right parts, the right fit at the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions. You got that right, Buckaroo. They apply. And we are going to welcome back the wonderful Hunter Stahl back to Locked on Spartans. Hunter, I will let you decide what's going to bring more smiles to Michigan State fans when it comes to PFF grades from last year going into this year. Is it going to be the offensive side, the defensive side, or behind door number 3, special teams? I don't suppose it will be special teams, but are you going to surprise us today? Huh?
Yeah, sure thing. So first of all, let's talk about the offense. Last season, MSU's overall offensive grade was a 78.0, which ranked number 48 overall in the country. So not terrible there, not bad. With that, broken down more individually, the top 5 players from last season with at least 200 snaps total out of MSU's 821 were Jarrett Horst actually with an 80.8 overall grade. Keon Coleman was second with 76.1. JD Duplain was third with a 75.4. Next was Eli Collins with 75.1. And fifth was Peyton Thorne actually with 71.8. Now, looking at overall grades, it's pretty similar to like a grade scale in school, for example. So anything like 90 plus is elite. 80 to 90 is still pretty good. And 70s, 60s are kind of more average, below average to below 60s, just bad to worse. Okay. So, here our only returner is JD Duplain with a 75.4. But the important thing here to bring back the optimism is that if you remove the minimum snap filter and take that out of the analysis, Noah Kim actually led the team last year in highest grade, an 84.0 overall grade. Now, the caveat there is that Kim had just 38 total snaps, 19 of those were pass attempts, but he still earned a passing grade of 86.1. So with that, once again, it is a small sample size, but if you remove the minimum snap count, he had the best passing grade on the team last season and would have been third in the Big Ten amongst all QBs with no minimum snap count.
I don't like that spin zone. I love that. I appreciate that spin zone. Who needs minimum snap count, please? Just because he tuned up Akron doesn't mean it didn't count. No, hey, those throws were throws on a dime. So, okay, there we go. We're rolling heavy into the first game here against Central. Yeah, when it comes to the offense, and I know that we are replacing roughly 3,879 snaps at the receiver position between Reed, Coleman, Jeremy Bernard, Cade McDonald, of course, just great production from those guys as well. Is there any way to get a read on what the receiver position is going to give this year? Obviously, we have Trey Mosley. That goes without saying. But with the other guys, I know it's going to be that low minimum snap count. Anything there from the rest of that field in the wide receiver room?
Yeah, so not really, unfortunately. So once again, I think it's mostly just due to the lack of opportunity there for the other receivers. Right. But other than that, though, for the overall offensive grade, aside from Keon Coleman last year and Jaden Reed, the next highest receiver was Montori Foster with a 63.1 overall grade. So nothing much there. I mean, aside from grade, you've seen a lot from Trey Mosley. I think he can be definitely an effective number 1 receiver. But once again, it's just a big question mark because we just don't know what these guys can do because we just haven't had the opportunity, right, with 2 NFL caliber receivers leaving the program.
I just need to know how the receiver room is going to shake out. Obviously, storyline number 1 is the quarterback battle, but we can't even get a crumb of information on these receivers. Like Ted Gilmore just spoke to the media not too long ago. It's like, yeah, Trey Mosley did well. Montori Foster did well. Chris Fitzpatrick, Jerron. And it's like, oh my God, they're going to name every single receiver for the 8th consecutive media availability in a row. So unfortunately, something that we're all good at here is waiting and just seeing what actually happens on the field. So I guess it can't bother you too much as the who on earth is going to shine this year on the field at receiver. But even though he's not a receiver, this is a gentleman we've talked about very recently on this program. Malik Carr, when you see him, when you grade his game, did you see a breakout season coming? Because look, we almost just did half an episode on Malik Carr breaking out. Is that just me, the clown in the green tinted sunglasses over here, or as a football connoisseur like yourself, are you seeing a breakout season for Malik the Freak Carr as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely could happen. The opportunity is obviously there. I mean, it's really his season and shine now at tight end position. And we've seen what he can do before. He's had some pretty good, long pass plays in the past seasons where he just runs on the field and breaks a lot of tackles. But really for him, though, I think it needs to be more consistent, maybe this year with a better O-line, that can help, especially with a new quarterback too, either whether it be Kim or Hauser starting at quarterback. All those guys like to dump off passes to the tight end, in the flats or somewhere over the middle. And so I think he can definitely have a breakout season this year. If he does, I think it'll be a big disappointment because this is, once again, kind of his time to do it. But we definitely have to see. As far as his grade goes overall, once again, not much to work with. Only a 61.7 overall offensive grade last season. But like I said, though, I still like him, though. I mean, I still think he definitely can break out. He has the ability to do it. It's just a matter of if he finally can put it all together this season.
When I got 61% in high school, the teacher would say, well, you have room for improvement, at least. So hopefully that's going to be kind of similar to that. But I guess, again, we'll just have to wait and see here. As far as new faces go on the offense, obviously, I don't expect you to come in with freshmen that are going to light it up because I don't think you guys are on PFF high school yet. I'm sure you will be in a few years, but not just yet. But transfers, are there any transfers on the offensive side of the ball where you're looking at their grades from last year? You're thinking, oh, yeah, we could be in business here in East Lansing with these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So really there's two guys who stand out in the transfer portal. And as far as those transfers goes that came to MSU, we have Nathan Carter, obviously, no surprise there, but also Jaren Mangham as well. So the two running back transfers. So Nathan Carter last year at UConn, we all know that he only played in 4 games. And in those 4 games, he only had 64 rush attempts. But he did have an 80.1, though, overall grade in those 4 games. So it's definitely promising. Definitely showing that he can, be a solid running back, even with a small sample size. Now, last year, Jaren Mangham at USF, he only had a 65.0 run grade in just 4 games played and only on 24 rush attempts. Now, the key there, though, is that back in 2021 for USF, he had an 84.6 run grade with 15 touchdowns, 672 yards, and 159 total rush attempts. So from both these guys, you've seen that, they can definitely make an impact in more limited roles and, with smaller sample size, of course. To make a kind of a apples to oranges connection, we had a certain running back from Wake Forest in 2020 transfer to us. You may have heard of. And he had an 85.0 grade at Wake Forest. So not too far off, but hey, you know what? You never know.
I'm going to go on FanDuel right when we're done recording this and look up Jaren Mangham Heisman odds and, put the mortgage on it under the advisory of Hunter Stahl. So thank you very much for making me the wealthiest man in Michigan here once the season ends. That is good to know, though. With that said, with all the offense, is that the better side of the ball for Michigan State this year? Or is it just simply that defense, especially with, who they have at that front 6 or front 7, however you want to determine it? Which is the better side of the ball for MSU this year?
Yeah, so it's kind of tough to tell overall. But so if you look at that defense from last season, MSU's defense ranked number 94 overall in total defensive grade with just a 71.5 grade overall. So obviously not great there. Not where you want to be as total defense goes. As far as the players go from defense last year, our top guys with at least 200 snaps once again was, first of all, Jacoby Windmon, no surprise there, with an 80.0 grade. After that, we had Jacob Slade with a 77.9. Third was Simeon Barrow at 77. Fourth was Deshaun Mallory at 69. And fifth was Xavier Henderson at 68. So, from that list, obviously you have Windmon and Barrow coming back. A key thing there, though, is that Windmon obviously only played 8 games last season. So even though he had, a smaller opportunity and played less games, fewer snaps, he still had a great grade overall, though, and was still top 10 edge rushers in the Big Ten in overall grade at that position. Okay. Gotcha. Other than that, though, like you mentioned before, the secondary is the problem. So everyone knows that. Last season, MSU secondary finished with a 56.1 coverage grade overall, which ranked not only 12th out of 14th in the Big Ten, but also 121st out of 131 teams in the entire country. So
yeah, that's bad. That's bad.
Quite the bottom of the barrel there, if you will. The top rated defender last year in the pass game was Chester Kimbrough with just a 72.1 grade with a minimum of 50 coverage snaps.
Okay.
For comparison to a good defense, if you look back to MSU's 2018 defense, we had 8 players on that side of the ball that had a higher coverage grade than just a 72.1. That was led by Justin Lane with a 90 grade overall, just for comparison to a solid cornerback versus what we are working with right now. So obviously, very poor in the coverage game, not anywhere close to where we want to be. And to answer your question from earlier, yes, it was truly that bad as far as the secondary goes and the coverage grade goes for last season.
Great, Hunter. That's awesome. I love those numbers. No, it's okay. I feel a pressure behind my left eye. The room's starting to get a little dizzy, but that's okay. We'll power through here. I want to ask a few more questions about the defense. And actually, I'm going to keep it to Jacoby Windmon here in a hot segment. First, Hunter, I hate to do this to you. You're such a nice guy, but I got to send you back to the bench because I need to talk to people's ears off about Betterhelp. This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. We all feel uncertain at times, and no, not just with everything about the MSU secondary that Hunter mentioned. No, I'm talking about real, actual life stuff that we often aren't sure how to handle. That is where Betterhelp steps in. Whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so that you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Therapy is helpful for many reasons, from learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, becoming the best version of yourself. Point blank, if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suitable for your schedule. Just fill out the brief questionnaire. You will get matched to a licensed therapist. And hey, if you're not feeling that first therapist, switch anytime for no additional charge. BetterHelp is looking out for you. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege today for 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedoncollege. And back off the bench, it's Hunter Stahl of PFF College. Jacoby Windmon, a lot of talk about him this offseason for great reasons. 3-time Defensive Player of the Week in the Big Ten. Just an outstanding defensive player, but an interesting one because, well, it was 3 different thirds of a season. The first third, defensive end. The second third, linebacker. The last third, doing the same thing I'm doing, just hanging out in a basement, just talking MSU sports because, well, he was suspended. How confident are you that he's going to be a strong linebacker this year? I know that sounds very silly. He's very clearly athletic. He was amazing at UNLV before he transferred here, but in the Big Ten, going back to that linebacker position, small sample size of 3 or 4 games, what are your thoughts on him at that linebacker position this year?
Yeah, definitely. I think the linebacker spot is definitely the key spot for him and where he can be most effective on the defense overall. Now, PFF, we have him more as an edge rusher classified technically. But with that, we saw what we can do versus at linebacker versus DN last season. And I think it really helps that he just, once again, can, be more free at that spot, not be blocked every play immediately, and can really fly around the ball. And a key part of that too is that last year he was one of the top 3 pass rushers on the team as well. And so him, Aaron Brule, and Simeon Barrow were the top 3 on the team, obviously all returning again this season. And last season, those 3 combined for a total of 62 pressures and 14 sacks overall. So obviously that's good. It's optimistic coming back to help out the secondary as well, because you think, if there's less time to throw, more time on more pressure on the quarterback rather, then our secondary can hopefully cover somebody and improve from last season. So in sum, I think Windmon can be, a really solid linebacker this year. I think he can definitely be all Big Ten, no problem. And really, I think he'll be the guy that leads the defense this year on that side of the ball.
And for new faces, because he's not the only talented guy on that front 6, we have a lot of returners, of course. Simeon Barrow, Derek Harvey, all those guys. Cal Halliday, I don't know if anyone's heard of that guy. Pretty good at football. Amongst the new guys, though, on defense, who can we start to get excited about? I mean, whether they're just depth pieces or whether you think that they could be bona fide starters this year, who's going to be a new face that we can get thrilled about?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, there's some transfers that definitely kind of pique your interest when it comes to the defense. One of those guys is Terry Roberts, the transfer corner out of both Miami and Iowa. Last season, once again, small sample size, but he played in 4 games for Iowa, had 3 starts. And in that, he had an overall 79, almost 80 coverage grade overall in those 4 games. So if you play for MSU, in comparison, that would be the highest on the team. And so definitely that's solid there. I'm not sure if he'll start for MSU right off the bat. I mean, probably definitely get some snaps and so forth, but I think he could definitely make an impact in secondary that's greatly needed, especially too, even if not, just adding depth, which obviously last year we had a huge problem with, especially in the secondary, with a guy just staying healthy overall.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm having flashbacks now to last year, just how many bodies were all over the field on defense. That is fascinating, though. I got to say, I did not expect to hear Terry Roberts' name, but that is enlightening. That gets me fired up and ready to go because, yeah, he played sparingly at Iowa last year. I mean, didn't really do much before that in his career, but yeah, we'll take a 79 around these parts. That's going to have to play here, Hunter. It just has to. Now, you can take either side of the ball here. Because, it sent you a few things like, hey, just who's underrated on this team? Who's something that, like, us fans don't even realize is as good as you guys at PFF are grading them at? Is there any one or two players on last year's team that you think got way too much flack than they deserve because, well, they're actually pretty good for this team?
Yeah, definitely. So, Matt, what if I told you that MSU had a certain lineman last season on O-line that was the highest graded guard in the country in pass block grade of 90.5 overall?
I'd be thrilled, and I would wonder where he transferred for a big NIL bag, Hunter. That's what I would say.
Sure thing. So actually Geno Vandemark was top rated guard last season in true pass blocking sets. So that's your standard pass drops where there's no screen blocks, no RPOs, flashing passes, just true pass block sets. And so in 49 true pass sets, he did not allow a single pressure, quarterback hit, sack, and so forth. If you look at the entire O-line altogether, amongst everyone in the country, he was second overall, only behind Northwestern's Peter Skoronsky, who obviously was a first-round draft pick last season in the NFL draft. So if you take that and you also factor in the overall pass grade, which does include RPOs, screen passes, play action, etc., Geno had the fourth highest grade amongst all O-line in the country with a minimum of 100 pass block snaps. And so in that category, he allowed one pressure all season long.
Wow. That plays. That plays in a lot of places, not just East Lansing. I got to say, I thought that Geno was going to have a fine career here. I was really looking forward to his season coming up. I had no idea he was that great, though, in his small sample size last year, and which is only going to get bigger as he's fighting for a starting spot. And God, if the coaches at East Lansing are grading him like that, he's not fighting for the starting spot. He's got the starting spot, Hunter. That's amazing. Love to hear that about him. Love to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to see that too, looking at all this data. But, there's the thing too, is the caveat is it is a smaller sample size. So he played in 7 games last season, and he had 2 starts versus both Penn State and Indiana at right guard at the end of the year. So he had about 127 total pass block snaps last year. And for guys who played all year long, those usually range from over 400 or so. So once again, about a quarter of the total pass block snaps for an entire season. But once again, though, I mean, he was a redshirt freshman last year. Definitely, a good recruit coming in, 4-star guy. And so he showed in a very small sample size last year what he can truly do. And so I think he has a really high ceiling. And if he can keep up that momentum they had last year at the end of the season, I mean, he could seriously be one of the best linemen, not only in the Big Ten, but also in the country, if he keeps up that, at least in the pass game, as far as that goes.
God, love it. Absolutely love it. I've loved this whole chat, really, Hunter. I'm sorry to say, but I will drag you back on here. Hopefully it's cordial. Hopefully I don't have to kidnap you or anything, but this would be delightful to keep on talking with you throughout this season as you guys keep on doing great work at PFF College. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your week, the rest of the off season before the season officially begins next Friday? Or if you're a nut like I am, week 0 over in Dublin, Ireland between Navy and Notre Dame. Anything you want to leave us with here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just say be sure to check out pff.com for their content. So sign up for PFF Plus. You can get access to content on NFL, college football, fantasy, betting, and all the premium stats as well that include all the player grades for every college, every NFL team, etc. Everything I told you today was all public information. So you can all find that online yourself. You can do your own analysis, look at your own grades, etc. That's only $9 a month or $90 for the entire year for that service.
That's a no-brainer. That's what I'm talking about, Hunter. This was awesome. And everyone else that watched, that listened, thank you guys so much. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Throw us 5 stars. Go leave a nice comment if you're in a good mood. If you're in a bad mood, then let's keep it to yourself, please. But no, you guys are truly the best. We are roaring towards kickoff. It'll be here before we know it. Keep it tuned, locked on Spartans, your team in green and white, 5 days a week. Love you all. Go green.